Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on, well, a truly fascinating journey. We've gathered a stack of sources, historical accounts, scientific papers, even some philosophy to look at something huge. We're aiming to trace about 5 millennia of human history, but through the lens of one single, incredibly profound relationship, a bond that quite literally shaped the world we live in. You know, for most of recorded history, there was this one animal that was, well, basically an extension of human will. It powered everything: conquest, farming, you name it. That animal, of course, was the horse. So today we're going to unpack this incredible partnership between us, Homo sapiens, and Equus caballus. It's a coevolution so deep it actually reshaped both species and, frankly, defined civilization itself for a very long time.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how this incredibly deep contract, built up over thousands and thousands of years, just saw this breathtakingly rapid rupture right in the 20th century. I'm sort of calling this period the Great Unhitching, because as the internal combustion engine and then the electric motor systematically made the horse basically obsolete in its main roles, it happened alongside this broader disconnection for us humans from the living world, which has kind of left us, you, the listener, in this state we're exploring as isolated opulence, surrounded by stuff, by abundance, but weirdly disconnected from the very biological realities that made us who we are. So our deep dive today is looking at this idea that the explosive rise of synthetic friends, AI companions, maybe it isn't just some random tech trend. Maybe it's actually an unconscious, almost societal attempt to fill this huge void, the void left by our oldest, our most significant animal partner. We're kind of looking for a ghost in the machine, aren't we? An echo of those hoofbeats that carried us for so long.
Okay, so if the horse became this ultimate partner, we need to go way back, like really far back, to a time when it was, well, not a partner at all. Before partnership, the horse was simply prey.
Yeah.
Right. We have that incredible Paleolithic cave art, some of it, what, 30,000 years old?
At least, yeah. Lascaux, Chauvet.
And they clearly show horses, but as quarry for hunters. Neanderthals, Cro-Magnons, they were hunting them using pretty sophisticated techniques, too.
Absolutely. Driving them into natural traps, things like that. They're a food source, plain and simple.
So how do we get from prey to partner? It wasn't overnight, I guess.
No, not at all. And that's critical. What we understand now is that horse domestication wasn't like flipping a switch. It seems to have been a complex, multi-stage thing. Really, two key phases we know about. The first real attempt seems to be the bowtie culture. This is in modern-day Kazakhstan, around 3500 BCE.
Okay. And what were they doing?
They domesticated horses, but primarily, it looks like, for meat and milk. We've got pretty solid evidence. Well, the shape of the bones, morphology suggests selective breeding. We see bit damage on their teeth, which implies harnessing, maybe riding. And crucially, chemists have found residue of mare's milk lipids absorbed into their pottery.
Wow. Okay, so they were definitely using them, riding, milking.
Groundbreaking stuff for the time, but here's the twist. This whole lineage, genetically speaking, seems to have been a dead end. Didn't really spread outside that region.
A dead end? What happened?
We're not entirely sure. Some probably reverted to the wild. They actually contribute some ancestry to the Brazalski's horse, the only truly wild horse left today. But that bowtie line didn't lead to our modern horses.
So where did our horses come from, then?
That was the second event, much later, around 2200 BCE, over on the Pontic-Caspian steppe. Think Volga-Don region in Russia.
Okay, 1,000 years later.
Over 1,000, yeah. And this time, the motivation seems different. It wasn't just about food anymore. It was fundamentally about mobility.
Ah, speed, travel.
Exactly. And the genetic studies are really clear on this. They show this explosive expansion of this single bloodline, the ancestors of all modern domestic horses, right across Eurasia within just a few centuries. It was incredibly rapid.
So that was the real paradigm shift, seeing the horse not just as livestock, but as technology.
A biological engine.
Yeah.
Precisely. Something that could shrink distance, give you a massive advantage. That was the game changer.
You know, what really gets me about this isn't just the taming part. It's this idea that humans, without any modern genetics, were essentially, well, bioengineering these animals. How did we even do that?
It's pretty astonishing when you think about it. But yeah, scientists have now identified at least 125 specific genes that show signs of positive selection during domestication.
Meaning we were actively breeding for those traits.
Exactly. We're pushing evolution in the direction we wanted. Think about the physical side first. There are genes linked to back strength. GSDMC is one they've pinpointed, clearly selected for carrying riders, carrying loads.
Makes sense.
And also adaptations in muscles, limbs, joints, even the cardiac system. basically tuning the horse's body to be a better, more durable vehicle for us.
But it wasn't just physical, right? You can have the strongest horse, but if it's wild.
Absolutely crucial point.
Mm.
The behavioral adaptations were just as important, maybe more so initially. We needed to transform this flighty prey animal into something compliant.
So breeding for temperament.
Definitely. Genes linked to docility, like one called ZFPM1, show strong selection. Others related to social behavior, learning ability, a reduced fear response. All these were favored. It was a deliberate reshaping of the horse's mind as well as its body.
So this sounds like incredible progress from a human perspective. We got this amazing animal partner, but you mentioned a genetic cost. What was the downside for the horse itself?
Right. This intensive human-directed breeding wasn't without consequences for the horse. These practices, especially creating what we call demographic bottlenecks.
Meaning, like, starting big populations from just a few animals.
Exactly. Narrowing the gene pool. That, combined with deliberate inbreeding to fix the traits we wanted, strength, speed, calmness, it led to an accumulation of deleterious mutations. Basically, harmful genetic changes built up, more so than in their wild ancestors.
So we made them useful, but maybe less robust genetically.
In some ways, yes.
Yeah.
We can still see the legacy of that. Modern breeds, especially in the last couple hundred years with really strict breed standards, have lost even more genetic diversity. Another 16% drop just recently.
Wow.
A very deliberate biological manipulation, a trade-off. We got strength and compliance, but the horses paid a price in genetic health. And another key thing we gained was control over their reproduction.
How so?
We managed to shorten the generation time. In wild herds, it's over 7 years between generations. We pushed that down to about 4 years in domestic horses, which meant we could, turn them out, produce them in astronomical numbers. That was key to their spread.
Okay, so we've got this bioengineered partner. Let's talk impact. For almost 4,000 years, the horse was the technological leap, wasn't it? Especially in warfare.
Undeniably. The ability to move faster than anyone on foot just rewrote the rules. Civilizations literally rose and fell based on their access to and mastery of the horse in war.
Where do we first see this really clearly?
The chariot revolution. Around 2000 BCE, we find these amazing chariot burials. They developed lighter, spoked wheels, much better than solid ones, and crucially, all metal bits for steering.
Giving them much better control.
Much better. These weren't just transport, they were mobile firing platforms. Archers, javelin throwers, devastating against infantry. It was a huge strategic shift. We even have this incredible training manual, the Kikuli text, from like 1350 BCE, detailing really advanced conditioning methods for war horses.
Wow. And then came cavalry.
Yeah, after about 850 DCE or so, riding directly on horseback became more dominant. It was more flexible than chariots. Leaders like Alexander the Great, he perfected the use of mass cavalry.
Not just for speed, right?
No, as a shock weapon. Pure psychological impact, too.
Yeah.
Charging into enemy lines. Terrifying.
And this culminates in the Middle Ages. The knight on horseback.
The medieval tank on legs, yeah. That's the apex, really. They bred specialized war horses, like the huge, powerful destrier, specifically to carry knights in full-plate armor.
That's incredible weight.
Exactly. The combined weight and momentum of a cavalry charge could just shatter infantry formations. It was a complete weapon system. And it drove other innovations, stronger saddles, and the really critical one, the stirrup.
Why was the stirrup so important?
Stability. It let a rider stay seated during impact and, crucially, use weapons like lances effectively from horseback. Without stirrups, you just knock yourself off. This whole system led to that specialized aristocratic warrior class, the knights. King Henry VIII in England was even mandating breeding larger horses in the 1500s.
So the military impact is huge. But you mentioned before, maybe the impact on daily life was even bigger. Agriculture, trade.
I think arguably, yes. Beyond the battlefield, the horse fundamentally changed how people lived and worked, especially in agriculture. For centuries, oxen were the main draft animals. Slow, steady.
But horses are faster.
Much faster. Also more versatile, greater endurance. When horses started replacing oxen on farms, particularly in Europe after maybe the 10th or 11th century, it was another revolution. Farmers could plow more land, get crops to market faster, react better to weather. It meant more food.
And innovations helped too.
Yeah, things like Jethro Tull's horse-drawn seed drill in 1701. More efficiency. Big increases in food production underpinning population growth.
Okay, farming revolutionized. What about trade? You mentioned the horse road.
Right. Before the horse, serious long-distance overland travel was just incredibly difficult and slow. The horse was the first technology that really shrank the world, connecting distant places reliably.
Like the Silk Road.
The Silk Road is the perfect example. We think of silk, but honestly, the horse was its true engine. That silk for horse trade was massive. China, for instance, desperately needed good horses, war horses especially, from the nomadic peoples of the steppes. They traded enormous amounts of silk for them.
So horses were almost like a currency.
In a way, yeah, strategic assets. Look at Qin Shi Huang's tomb, all those terracotta horses alongside the warriors. That tells you how vital they were. And these routes didn't just carry goods.
Ideas, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Technology, culture like the sport of polo, which spread along these roads, even religions like Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, they all traveled on horseback across Eurasia. It was the first great globalizing force powered by horses.
With that kind of importance, it's no wonder the horse got so deeply embedded in our psyche, right? More than just a tool.
Oh, completely. It became this incredibly powerful symbol everywhere. Owning horses meant wealth, power, status. Ancient Greece, Tang Dynasty, China, it was universal.
And our language reflects that, too.
Totally. Think about it. Chevalier in French, caballero in Spanish, cavalier in English, they all basically mean horseman, but they imply nobility, status, even the idiom to get off your high horse.
Comes from knights looking down on people?
Probably. It's a literal image of superiority. For thousands of years, the horse was power. But it was also more complex than that. In mythology, art,
Yeah.
that often appears in two ways. Sometimes as this kind of Chthonian figure linked to the earth, fertility, maybe untamed nature. Think of mare goddesses like Epona,
Okay.
but also as the heroic companion, Pegasus, Bucephalus, loyal, noble steeds. This dual symbolism, wild nature and loyal service, perfectly captures the complex human-horse relationship, and art is full of it, from ancient sculptures to grand Renaissance portraits like Titian's Charles V or David's Napoleon crossing the Alps. The horse was the ultimate visual shorthand for a ruler's command, their mastery.
So the horse is dominant for millennia. Then comes the Industrial Revolution. You'd think that would be the end, but you said it created a paradox.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Initially, industrialization didn't replace the horse. It actually made society more dependent on it, at least locally.
How does that work?
Well, factories needed raw materials brought in, finished goods taken out, railways and canals moved things long distances, but for that last mile delivery within cities, for moving goods from the station to the warehouse or the shop to the home, you needed horses, lots of them.
So cities filled up with horses.
Exploded with them. Between 1840 and 1900, the U.S. horse and mule population went up 6 times, to 24 million. By 1900, there was roughly 1 horse or a mule for every 3 people in America. Cities like New York, London, Paris, they ran on horsepower. Freight wagons, omnibuses, horse-drawn streetcars, vast fleets.
Okay, but that many animals in one place. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It absolutely was. It led to this incredible, almost unimaginable public health and environmental crisis. People call it the Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894.
Seriously, a manure crisis.
Oh, yeah. Picture New York City. Maybe 100,000 horses, generating over 2.5 million pounds of manure every single day.
I can't even picture that. What did they do with it all?
They tried, but they couldn't keep up. Streets were literally piled high with it. It dried into toxic dust, bred flies, spread disease. The smell must have been appalling. And urban working horses had brutal lives, often only lasting 3 years. So you also had thousands of carcasses to dispose of each year.
Good grief, it sounds like a nightmare.
It was. People genuinely feared cities would become uninhabitable, literally buried in waste. There was this famous urban planning conference in 1898 that reportedly gave up because they just couldn't see any solution to the horse manure problem.
So that crisis actually created the demand for something else.
A massive incentive. They desperately needed a new power source, something non-biological, something cleaner. The stage was perfectly set for the internal combustion engine and the electric motor.
And that's the Great Unhitching. The horse's role fundamentally changes.
Rapidly. In the 20th century, the replacement was swift.
So what drove it out? Tractors first.
On the farm, yes. Lighter, efficient gasoline and kerosene tractors, like the Fordson, started replacing draft horses. The real tipping point in the U.S. came around 1945. Tractor power finally overtook horsepower on farms. World War II labor shortages really sped that up.
And in the cities.
Electric streetcars had already started challenging horse-drawn trams. Then came the affordable, mass-produced car, like the Model T. By about 1915, cars were dominating passenger travel. Trucks took over heavy freight by the 1930s. Horse-drawn buses vanished from London in the 1920s.
And the numbers just plummeted.
Dramatically. That U.S. horse and mule population peaked around 27 million sometime between 1910 and 1920. By 1960, just 3 million left.
Wow. A 90% drop in like 40 years.
An incredibly fast transition, a fundamental unhitching from our oldest partner.
And this wasn't just swapping horses for machines, was it? You mentioned bigger economic shifts.
Oh, profound shifts. Think about land use. In 1915, estimates suggest 93 million acres of U.S. cropland, that's over a quarter, 27% of all harvested land, was dedicated just to growing feed, oats, and hay for horses and mules.
A quarter of all farmland, just for animal fuel.
Yeah. Tractors freed up that enormous area. It could then be used to grow food for humans or for export. It was a key factor behind the huge increases in agricultural output in the 20th century.
But there was a downside too, loss of self-sufficiency.
A major one. The farmer using horses, he grew his own fuel on his own land. It was a closed loop, energetically speaking.
Right. Hay and oats from his fields.
But the mechanized farmer, suddenly completely dependent on external inputs, fossil fuels, gasoline, diesel that had to be bought, usually from large corporations, often from far away. It severed that direct link between the land and the energy used to work it, integrating farming into this global, non-renewable energy system.
So the horse didn't vanish entirely, its job just changed completely.
Exactly. Its role was utterly redefined. From being the primary source of physical power, it shifted towards providing something more. Psychological.
And it's leisure and sport.
Primarily, yes. Recreational riding, competitive sports racing, dressage, show jumping. It's still a huge industry, actually.
Yeah.
In the U.S., the equine industry contributes something like $177 billion to the economy, supports over 2 million jobs, but the investment per animal is vastly more emotional now, not just practical.
And then there's therapy. That seems like a really significant shift.
Hugely significant, and maybe the most telling part of this new relationship. Horses are now seen as powerful agents of healing. You have hippotherapy.
That's using the horse's movement.
Yeah, the rhythmic motion helps with physical, occupational speech therapy for conditions like cerebral palsy, MS, stroke recovery. Then there's equine-assisted psychotherapy, or EAP.
And that's for mental health?
Right, treating things like PTSD, anxiety, depression, addiction. There was a really interesting Columbia University study with military veterans. An 8-week EAP program significantly reduced their PTSD and depression symptoms.
So it actually works. It's not just feeling nice around horses.
No, there seems to be real measurable stuff going on. This connection isn't just anecdotal anymore.
Okay, so what's the science behind it? Why does it work?
Well, psychologically, it taps into some deep things. It aligns really well with attachment theory, for example. Humans seem to seek out horses for closeness. They feel safer in their presence, use them as a secure base, and feel distress when separated. Classic attachment behaviors.
Huh, like with people.
Very much so. And horses are often called emotional mirrors. They tend to react very honestly, very directly to a person's emotional state. They don't lie, which can provide incredibly powerful feedback in therapy.
And biologically, is there something happening there too?
Absolutely. We know positive interactions like grooming a horse stimulate the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone in both the human and the horse. It's a mutual physiological response.
Both sides feel it.
Yes. And there's even research on physiological synchronization. Things like heart rate variability. The rhythm of the heartbeat can actually converge, become more similar between a human and a horse during calm, quiet interactions. It's like their nervous systems are tuning into each other.
That's incredible. The irony, though.
It's profound, isn't it? The very society that essentially discarded the horse as obsolete is now turning back to it, seeking healing for the anxieties and traumas of modern life.
So what does this modern turn back to the horse tell us about ourselves, about a deeper need?
I think it highlights something fundamental. You know the biologist E.O. Wilson? He proposed the biophilia hypothesis.
Right. The idea that we have an innate connection to nature.
Exactly. An innate tendency to focus on life and lifelike processes. He argued it's deep-seated, probably genetically influenced, and essential for our psychological well-being. We see evidence everywhere, our love of natural landscapes, how we use animal metaphors constantly, even biophobia, those seemingly innate fears of snakes or spiders.
Okay, so we need connection to life, but modern life.
Modern life, with its increasing reliance on technology and insulation from the natural world, has arguably weakened or ignored this biophilic drive. And the hypothesis suggests there's a psychological cost to that disconnection, rising anxiety, depression, maybe a sense of meaninglessness.
And the horse fits into this how? Was it special?
I'd argue it was uniquely special in this context. The horse wasn't just an animal partner.
For over 5,000 years, it was our primary non-human partner, our main living link between the human sphere and the wider biological world.
So the Great Unhitching wasn't just losing a tool.
It was like a major amputation, a particularly acute, maybe even traumatic severing of our most significant interspecies bond.
Which brings us back to that idea you mentioned earlier, the opulent cage.
Exactly. This is where it all connects, I think.
Eh.
We live like opulent kings and queens of old, right? We command incredible power, resources, comfort. But we're increasingly insulated, caged, away from the biological realities, the messy natural world that shaped us for millennia.
Comfort, but disconnection.
That precise combination, material comfort plus existential or biological disconnection, it creates, I think, the perfect psychological conditions for this deep-seated longing. A search for some new kind of companionship, something to soothe the isolation, but ideally something that doesn't disrupt our comfort too much.
Enter the synthetic friend, the AI companion.
It feels like the logical, perhaps inevitable, outcome of that search. Look at the rapid rise of AI companions, Replica, Character.ai, others. They're incredibly widespread now. One survey found over 70% of teenagers reporting using them.
Why are they so appealing?
They're designed for it. They're programmed to be perpetually available, always patient, completely non-judgmental, emotionally validating, 2047. Users consistently report they reduce feelings of loneliness and anxiety. They offer interaction that is very low friction and high reward.
Slow friction, meaning easy.
Effortless almost. Unlike real relationships, human or animal, which require work, compromise, dealing with unpredictability.
But is it a real relationship? That's the key difference, isn't it? Between the AI and the horse, say.
That is the absolute crucial difference. The bond with AI is fundamentally parasocial, or maybe pseudosocial. It's one-sided. The user invests real emotion, but the AI is just simulating reciprocity. It's not sentient.
Where's a horse?
A horse is an autonomous, sentient being. It has its own needs, its own fears, its own personality. Building a relationship requires mutual respect, communication, often nonverbal negotiation. It's reciprocal. Remember that study about oxytocin? Live dogs boost it, robot dogs might even decrease it. That hints at the difference between real connection and simulation.
So what are the potential long-term effects of relying on these synthetic friends? Do we know?
We really don't. It's too new. But there are certainly risks people are discussing. Unhealthy dependency is one, perhaps more subtly, something called empathy atrophy.
Losing the skill of empathy.
Potentially eroding our ability, or maybe just our patience, for navigating the complexities and difficulties of real, messy human relationships. If you get accustomed to effortless, perfect validation from an AI, you might develop unrealistic expectations for human partners, friends, family, which, ironically, could end up making loneliness even worse in the long run.
We've really covered some ground today, tracing this incredible arc from horses being hunted on the steppes to us literally re-engineering them for war and farming, their peak during the industrial age, then that sudden, swift decline. And now, this strange loop back, where they're redefined as companions, even healers. It's just so clear the horse was far, far more than just a tool for us. For most of our civilized history, it was a defining part of what it even meant to be human.
And if we pull back to that bigger picture, that great unhitching really does feel like a kind of civilizational amputation. We gained incredible power, incredible wealth. We became those opulent kings and queens. But maybe we ended up in a kind of silent kingdom, increasingly alone with our technology. The rise of the synthetic friend looks like a symptom of that condition, doesn't it? An attempt to essentially program a solution to what might be a problem of the soul, trying to replicate the non-judgmental, emotionally resonant presence of our oldest animal partner, but in purely digital form.
Which leaves us, and leaves you, the listener, with a pretty provocative thought, I think. In recreating our oldest, most significant animal partner as an echo in the machine, we absolutely get convenience, we get frictionless validation. But what essential part of our own humanity, a humanity forged over thousands of years through real, reciprocal, sometimes difficult, profoundly alive connections, what part of ourselves might we be losing in that transaction?